If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And we want the blessing of God in our nation.
Well, hi, my name is Jeff, and welcome to this edition of the Keeping It Israel podcast. And today, we wanted to just check in with everyone and let you know about the recent Israel Prayer Watch Canada tour that we set out on, my wife and I, and also our event that we held recently, the culminating event, the closing event called the Israel Prayer Watch Summit. And just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, I want to remind us about the why of all of this. We felt very strongly when we met last December as a team that God was asking us to shine a light on the issue of anti-Semitism in an effort to bring believers together, Christian believers in the Jewish Messiah, to stand in solidarity with the Jewish people. For too long, anti-Semitism has been, blamed on Christianity. And of course, as Christians who understand the troubled history of our faith, we take some responsibility for that. Maybe not personally. I've never felt like I was someone who was anti-Semitic. However, this kind of residue seems to have, trickled its way down through history and impacted many of us. And I would say that perhaps in my earlier years and even during my first 20 years or so of pastoring, that whether or not, I would have said, hey, I'm anti-Semitic, I would never have said that. But I would have to say that, my thinking, my preaching, my teaching was all influenced by some of these attitudes that have trickled down through Christendom. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, what happened in the early days of the Christian faith, about 300 years after Jesus left this earth. It's always been very ironic to me that during, Acts, the book of Acts, when the apostles came and said, we have all these Gentile believers, what do we do with them? They came to the Jerusalem council, and the big question was, do we make these Gentiles become Jewish, or can they believe in Jesus? Can they be filled with the Holy Spirit and maintain an identity as believers in Jesus, followers of his way, but not be circumcised, not have to go through sort of all the Jewish rituals, and even observe the Jewish feasts? And so there's this interesting conversation, and what comes of it is that they decide, no, these Gentile believers can, obviously they can believe in Jesus. Obviously, the Holy Spirit has fallen on them. They've been filled with the Holy Spirit. How can we argue with that? And so they came back and said they don't need to be circumcised. There's a few things they need to do. They need to, and I may not remember all of them. I think there were 3, but they need to abstain from, food sacrificed to idols. They need to not eat anything with blood in it, and abstain from sexual immorality. I think those were the 3. And so it's very interesting. 300 years later, when Constantine makes Christianity the official religion of the empire, now Christians are saying Jews cannot be Christians unless they completely abandon their Jewish traditions and their Jewish faith, which seems absolutely ridiculous to me. So they were forced to convert to Christianity and to leave Judaism and all of those things behind. And out of that grows this anti-Semitic spirit. And, we met last Sunday night, and Pastor Wayne Hilsden, Dr. Wayne Hilsden from Jerusalem, talked to us about this. He said, really, this is a demonic spirit. And so there is some very serious spiritual work background here at play. And so this is what we're talking about, anti-Semitism. It's something, this hatred of Jewish people simply because they are Jews, which is illogical, which makes no sense, which doesn't track with, how most of us would think or feel. However, it's out there and it's real. And so we wanted to shine a light on this, as I said before. And we figured the best way to do that would call believers together, pray together, and take this pledge of solidarity that we have been taking all across the country. So I'll just report to you how that went. We started back in June, Sharon and I, and we left our home here in Barrie and made our way north to Sudbury and then to points beyond, all the way west to Vancouver Island. And I believe that during that month, we, in addition to 8 different prayer meetings that we had, Israel Prayer Watch Canada prayer meetings, we also pastored or ministered in some Sunday services along the way. God was gracious to open some doors. And I will say this, I was particularly a little disappointed at the reception that we received. However, we sort of learned, and I tried to be objective about this because I was a pastor for many years. So I do understand the schedule and I understand focus and all of that kind of thing. But we had thought that we might get more invitations. And so we wrote this off to the fact that, the Lord had opened specific doors to us. God was leading, and that those who attended, those who came to the various prayer meetings that we hosted, were the ones that He wanted to be there. And we just were so thrilled for so many who signed the pledge, who came, who prayed, and were a part of this focus together. And so, I mentioned we did Sudbury, we stopped in Thunder Bay, we did Brandon, Manitoba, we had ministry in Edmonton area, Stony Plain, Calgary. We did, let me think. After Calgary, we were in West Kelowna, we were in 108 Mile Ranch up just north of 100 Mile House, BC. We were on the island, Vancouver Island, and then in Ladysmith, BC, Sydney, BC on the island, and back around to Richmond before we headed home. And what a wonderful experience we had, and amazing people journey that we met along the journey. And so we just wanted to let everyone know. And if you're listening, if you're watching and you were part of one of these prayer meetings, what an incredible spirit that we felt. And the Lord was with us in a very special way. And we were just grateful to be able to be involved in this. Then we, came back, had some time off in the summer. And then in September, we picked up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and worked our way back here to Ontario, and had a number of those prayer meetings along the way as well. We were in Halifax. We were then back in Ontario. Unfortunately, we never got any bookings in New Brunswick. And I realized, timing was part of that. But we just, again, were grateful to go to places that opened their doors to us, that made it possible for us to come in. We had a wonderful time at Peace Tower Church in Ottawa, in Arnprior at Glad Tidings Pentecostal Church, and then Hamilton Christian Fellowship, Bethel in Sarnia, Royal View in London, and finished off at Whitby in Whitby Christian Assembly on the Tuesday night before our summit. And then we moved toward the Israel Prayer Watch Summit. And this has been something that we have just been looking forward to. And it's really hard, actually, for me to believe that it's over. There's a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of effort, a lot of promotion, a lot of advertising that went into this summit. And, at the end of the day, it was a great time. We were so thankful for the many who came, especially thankful for some of the ministries who displayed their focus in Israel. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a little drink of coffee. But also for the many who came and were a part of the day. And we call it a win. We had probably a little over 100, and then we had 15 or so on the live stream link during the event. We've had a couple hundred views of our live stream since the event occurred. And by the way, you can find that. You can go and find that on our YouTube channel, the live stream of the summit. And it's also still up on Facebook as well, on our Facebook page at FCF Jeff. And I think that you will enjoy being part and hearing the challenges that came from our guests. We had a wonderful time. Reverend Jason Luscombe brought greetings from my fellowship, my denomination, the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. It was a privilege to have him there. And then Reverend Bill Prankard brought a great challenge about revival. And then also Dr. Wayne Hillsden, who was our keynote speaker, spoke to us on the subject of anti-Semitism and delivered a powerful, powerful message that if you have an opportunity, you need to go and hear on YouTube. I would just say this, what a great response for people to come just with a desire to stand with Israel, to bless the Jewish people. And we just really felt God move in an incredible way.
When you go in the room, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. It's changing everything. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only want to hear your voice. We're hanging on every word.
If you bless Israel, you're going to be blessed. It's not hard to misinterpret that or interpret that. You can figure that out. If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And we want the blessing of God in our nation. We want the blessing of God over our families. And anti-Semitism is growing in Canada again. It's hard to believe. It's an awful thing. You think, how could this happen again? How could people do this again? And so many are forecasting it's going to get worse and worse, and they're forecasting doom and doom. But let me ask you a question here. Do you actually think the enemy is going to succeed with his plan to wipe out the Jewish people? Check the record. He tried it years ago. I mean, thousands of years ago, he tried it to wipe out all the male babies. But there was a Moses. It didn't turn out too good for the enemy. He tried it again with a plan to destroy all the Jewish people. But there was an Esther.
Bill Prankard mentioned an event in Ottawa many years ago where hundreds, if not thousands, gathered to confess the sin of turning away the St. Louis ship filled with Jewish people who were fleeing Europe. And Canada turned that ship back, and many of those Jews died in the Holocaust. We need to confess. We need to turn from our wicked ways. We need to work in an opposite spirit. If this is a spiritual matter, we need to work in an opposite spirit, in the spirit of the holy God of Israel.
This moment, this part of our gathering, we're praying for a divine revelation of God's love for Israel. And I have to tell you this, pastors across this nation and across the United States and other parts of the world, many of them have no sense or connection of God's plans and purposes for Israel. Many of them have bought into a system of theology that says that Israel has been replaced by the church and that God no longer has any purposes, any promises that will be fulfilled for the nation of Israel. Folks, this is real. And we need to pray. I believe we need to pray that the Spirit of God, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of divine revelation will open the eyes of particularly believers, those in leadership and those in the body of Christ, to this fact.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank our team who has served in so faithfully into both, the tour, helping with the setup of the tour and getting the promotional material ready and so on, but also the big day, our Israel Prayer Watch Summit, the various responsibilities that were carried out. And so first, I want to say thanks to my wife, Sharon, and she is the one that deserves big thank you. She had to put up with me for this whole tour. We were a month on the road in June and a month on the road in September, or almost a month in September. And I just appreciate so much her assistance with the resource table and with all the work related to our accounting processes and processing and donations and all those kind of things. She does an amazing job all year long, but this has been a lot of extra responsibility this year. And so thank you, Sharon. And I know you're stuck with me kind of, but I do love and appreciate you. Also, thanks to Mark Fossey and to Laura Delegard. Laura is our Director of Media Production and Research. She takes care of all of the things related to our television show, to this podcast. She's a producer of this podcast as well, the producer of the show, and writes all the scripts and does all those things. But in the midst of all that, she also took on helping us to develop some video promotional pieces for the tour, and also the communication with all of the media outlets and so on, the promotion that way, social media. Did a fantastic job. Mark also leaned in, Mark Fossey, to assist in many of these areas, and especially helped on the day of as well. Both Mark and Laura were just a great asset. So thanks to our team and to so many of you who came. Without you coming, it wouldn't have been worthwhile doing, but we're so grateful for that. And of course, we're grateful to our speakers as well, who did just a phenomenal job. What does this mean? What does this mean for the future? Well, it means that our focus is never going to sway, away from prayer for Israel, prayer for the Jewish people, prayer for ministries and ministry leaders in the land of Israel. We're getting excited because in just a month from yesterday, Sharon and I are going to fly again to Israel. We're going to be visiting with 35 or so of the ministry leaders who, we help to fund projects with. But what we love about visiting them is that we get to sit with them, we get to hear their hearts, we get to share with them some of their burdens, we get to pray with them and encourage them. And God just gives us such gracious times together by His Spirit. And we love the fellowship that we have when we visit with these ministry leaders. And so we'd appreciate your prayers as we go again. Last May, it was kind of an exciting time with missiles flying and all those kind of things. We're thankful that things seem a little quieter at the moment, and hopeful that holds. But regardless, God is with us. We know that this is what He's called us to do, and we're excited to be able to go and visit. Mark is going to join us. Our development director, Mark Fossey, will join us in mid-November and be with us through to the end of our time there. And also, Laura, our entire team will be in Jerusalem the last week of our trip, around November 13th to the 18th or so. And we are excited to be a part of King of Kings' 40th anniversary celebrations. 40 years since Jim and Kathy Canelon and Wayne and Ann Hillsden went to begin this church at the invitation of the Israeli government and the city of Jerusalem. An amazing story, how God has, established King of Kings there in Jerusalem, but also she has expanded all around the world, literally. They have a family of ministries in the land of Israel, and more recently, new congregations in the United States, and I think Germany, Mexico. God is really blessing them in amazing and abundant ways. We're thankful for Wayne's leadership over many of those years, and also for Chad Holland, who currently leads, and we're looking forward to an exciting time at this 40th anniversary celebration and conference in mid-November. So thanks for your prayers for our team. And what I want to say about the future is that, as the Lord leads, we are prayerfully considering whether or not to continue some of these events, like the Israel Prayer Watch Summit. The tour, I think, was a one-time deal for the time being, but the summit was a great event that we are just looking forward to discovering whether or not we could do 2 or 3 of these next year in various parts of the country. And so if you're listening and you go, yeah, we'd like one of those in our community, and you'd like to help us to put that together. The other thing that we're wanting to do is get some key volunteer help in some of the major centers. I'm thinking sort of Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, or even Red Deer in the middle, where we could host an event in Alberta. And then, of course, in the GTA, some volunteers who could assist us there. And we were just praying about how we could, again, connect with people, connect with our partners, but also with new people who might want to partner with First Century Foundations. And I think this would be a wonderful way for us to attempt to do that. So that is the report that I wanted to bring to you today. I am encouraged at what God is doing in the land of Israel. And I hope that you are encouraged by the clips that you saw. I hope that, God is working in your heart and continuing to challenge you each and every day about how we can be supportive of Israel, supportive of the Jewish people. And we're just so grateful that God has called us to this unique but very important ministry. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for being a part of FCF. If you haven't engaged with us yet, if you've not looked at our webpage for firstcenturyfoundations.com and looked at some of the ministries that we're involved with and engage with us financially, I want to encourage you to prayerfully consider. Would you prayerfully consider how you can help us, how you can sow into this ministry? And we are especially looking for monthly partners. That monthly support gives us a solid foundation on which to do the work that God has called us to do. And so for $30 a month or $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever you feel that you can do, if you go to the website, there is a way that you can set that up online, or you can call. My wife would be happy to speak with you about setting up that monthly donation. And it would just be such a huge blessing to us and such a huge help as we minister to those in the land of Israel. God hasn't called us to go and be evangelists in Israel. He hasn't called us to be missionaries in Israel, but he's called us to be equippers of those he has already sent, those he has placed on the ground in the land, who have physical locations and have spheres of influence, who have opportunities in front of them all the time, and who have established relationships in the community. These are the people that we are helping to fund and support, and God is working through them in miraculous ways. And you know what? Your investment and our investment in them is a great one, and will bring fruit, will bring harvest, will bring a return for God's kingdom into eternity. This is, an investment that you can make that will have an impact in eternity. So consider giving to First Century Foundations. Consider that monthly option. And again, we'd love for you to call Sharon or go to the website, firstcenturyfoundations.com/donate, and you could help us in a great way by getting involved financially. We certainly appreciate your prayers. We place a high value on those. And listen, if all you can do is pray, if all you can afford to do is pray, that is still a great investment that you're making in our ministry, and we thank you for it. I also want to challenge you, if you haven't signed the pledge, we're going to leave it up on the website. And I think that if you go firstcenturyfoundations.com/IPW Canada and scroll down, you'll find the Solidarity Pledge. And we're looking to make it a little more easy for you to find. We'll probably be taking down the information about the summit and about the tour, but the pledge we want to leave up, and we'd love for you to go and sign it. Add your name to the list of those who have taken a stand and are taking a stand in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people against anti-Semitism. And so I just encourage you to do that. Again, firstcenturyfoundations.com/IPW Canada. and you'll be able to find the information there where you can read and sign the pledge, and we encourage you to do that. Well, thank you for listening, and we love being able to come to you in this format by podcast, and I just pray that what we've said today has been encouraging to your heart. Pray that you will be inspired by some of the links that we've shared, and also that it will inspire you to get more involved in ministry to Israel and in our ministry to the land of Israel. We would just appreciate that so much. Thank you for being part of Keeping It Israel today. God bless you. Shalom.
Thanks for watching. You can listen to this entire podcast on your favorite audio podcast platform. Find the link below. And while you're at it, don't forget to click subscribe and follow us on Facebook so you can stay connected to First Century Foundations.